So, Anders, I have to ask you this because artificial intelligence, machine learning in DevOps is just such an interesting topic, right? I can gain a lot if I do it right, but I can also lose a lot if I don't get the results that I wanted. And so ideally, I would like to treat a prediction model the way I treat any other DevOps artifact, right? I will put it in my library and people can just use it when they need images of German shepherds identified or you see what I'm saying, right? They can they can take advantage of the pain of others. And I think in AI ML that is as important as it is nowhere else almost, because it is just such a difficult thing to pull off.
And it is quite frankly probably almost the best that you can hope for as well, because I think in my opinion, even calling it ML, machine learning, I think that I'm always uncomfortable with that word, because as a friend of mine told me a few years ago when we were talking about this, you might be able to teach the bear to dance, but you're never going to teach the bear to sing. So how do you want to use the word learning now?
Yeah.
And certainly I think with ML, as with your German Shepherd example, we can teach the bear to dance fairly easily, but teaching it to sing is a whole other problem.
Yeah.
I think the best we can do is say, look, we've got a lot of data. We know that predictive analytics and ML and those things can have interesting insights. They can find patterns that aren't always obvious to us. But it's honestly, I think we've put a lot of work into this, and we put functionality. We have functionality in the electric flow product that we use for this, right? Mm-hmm. In our DevOps foresight analytics,
right.
And we're honestly we're waiting to sort of see what are the most interesting patterns that we see so far. To be honest, I'd say we're looking mostly to the left in terms of we're looking at things like code complexity. Rework, reopening of issues, sort of is really done.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the aspects that's kind of getting looked at. We don't. I would say we have less data right now in terms of what happens a little bit later on in downstream. But I think as time goes on, we'll start to see where the risk analysis, because that's really the way we're kind of treating it, is kind of trying to give you a little bit of a, arrow up or arrow down, yellow, red, green kind of notion of, hey, look, we're seeing this thing happen that the last few times it happened, bad things happened downstream. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what we're looking for. And a lot of those things, quite frankly, we already know intuitively, right? But we need evidence to back it up, either to make sure that we're right or to overcome culture, politics, history, technology, whatever the barriers are to get through. And I think all of this is just in service of trying to put as much useful and transparent, data and information in front of people as possible.
Right.
And I think AI and ML is very hot right now. And I may sound like a skeptic, because I talk about, we'll never, or not never, but we certainly haven't taught the bear how to sing yet.
Not with today's models. And
yeah.
I wrote a very unpopular article on how self-driving cars drive and how they learn to drive better every day, but that there is no perspective of having a car where there is nobody inside, because there is not one model, right? There is literally one model for every small decision. So there is tens of thousands of machine learning, AI, deep learning, all kinds of models that work together, and some human has to put together in a sense-making manner, just like what you are doing. You are the human behind foresight, right? Where you are saying, okay, here's this micro problem, and I can't create a set of programming rules that describes it very well. I only get 70% hit rate, right? But I want 90, and let's try and run that model, right? And then you see, woo, that worked in that case. And let's try and take advantage of the same type of model for a similar problem, but it may not work in that other case, right?
I think, and I had a wonderful conversation at a conference at lunch with John Allspaw a few months ago, mm-hmm. and he had a great piece of insight, particularly on the self-driving car thing, which was, you realize the self-driving cars, you can intimidate them, right? Because if I step out as a pedestrian right in front of your self-driving car, I'm going to make your car stop. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, what if I'm driving down the freeway and I start to kind of drift a little closer to your car? Am I going to be able to push you off the road eventually?
Right.
So here's just a very simple kind of obvious problem.
Any number. I see
Yeah.
an animal in front of a self-driving car, right? Should the car run it over, or should it do a brake and then risk getting hit by another car in the back?
Yeah.
Should the car prioritize my own safety over the safety of others? So if I'm more likely to get hurt, should it still ram into somebody else, even if it violates maybe an ethical or a
do we hit the school bus, or do we hit grandma? It's who's going to write that code, and then insurance wise, who's responsible for that? And it's going to be messy and interesting, and but driving is messy and interesting to begin with. Tens of thousands of people die every year in the United States in automobile accidents. Will more or less people die when we have self-driving cars? I have no idea. I really don't know. I do know a lot of rear-ending kind of accidents will probably cease to exist if we just take the human out of the loop of, maintaining distance from the car in front of them and stop and go traffic. If we get that, I think that's a huge win for the insurance industry and for everybody's insurance rates.
But it will then be interesting, because if you, and I know you are not supposed to brake for animals unless they are a certain size, or however exactly that works. But sometimes people will say, "Oh man, you ran over my dog," and just because you wanted to avoid a low-speed rear-ending, that's terrible. I'm going to sue, right? I mean, there's unlimited.
Yeah, no, it's gonna get a little bit tricky and interesting, but we'll progress. But I think this idea that next year we'll have totally self-driving cars, not going to happen.
Right. Same thing with self-driving DevOps. Thank you very much, Anders. This was another episode of EMA Cloud Rants.